Monica Bellucci confesses horrors of marriage with Vincent Cassel. For 18 years, Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel looked almost impossible to break apart. But behind the glamorous premieres and three-country lifestyle, their marriage was becoming something neither of them could keep pretending was working. And when Bellucci finally spoke about the breakup, what she said was much quieter, and much more revealing, than the scandal people expected. I think that's what makes their story interesting. Because this wasn't a marriage that ended with a dramatic public war. It ended with two people realizing that love alone wasn't enough anymore. Long before Vincent Cassel, Monica Bellucci had already built a life for herself. She grew up in Città di Castello, Italy, and originally planned to study law. Modeling was supposed to help pay the bills. Instead, it became a career. By the late 1980s, Bellucci was working internationally and appearing in major fashion campaigns. Then acting came along. Her first big international break was Tiny, one of the brides in Bram Stoker's Dracula. But she saw something in acting that modeling couldn't give her. And she kept going. Then came L'Appartement in 1996. That's where she met Vincent Cassel. He was already making a name for himself in French cinema. Bellucci was becoming known as a model-turned-actress. At first, Cassel apparently underestimated her. And that's the part one find almost funny now. He later admitted that he realized Bellucci wasn't getting roles simply because she was beautiful. She could actually act. Something changed between them. They married in 1999. And for years, they seemed to make an unusual relationship work. They were both famous. Both constantly traveling. Both working on major productions. And they didn't even always live in the same country. Rome. Paris. Eventually Brazil. It sounds glamorous when you say it quickly. But imagine trying to maintain a marriage that way. One production ends. Another begins. One person flies somewhere. The other follows later. Then children enter the picture. Their daughter Deva was born in 2004. Their second daughter, Leonie, arrived in 2010. And suddenly this wasn't just about two actors trying to protect a romance. There was a family involved. That's where Bellucci's later comments become especially important. Because in 2013, she wasn't pretending she knew exactly what the future looked like. She acknowledged that nobody really knows how long a marriage will last. And she admitted that despite having homes and a shared life across different countries, they were spending significant amounts of time apart. That sentence says a lot without saying everything. I think people sometimes imagine marriages end on one particular afternoon. One argument. One betrayal. One dramatic discovery. Real life isn't always like that. Sometimes things disappear slowly. The dinners become phone calls. The shared routine becomes separate schedules. And eventually you realize you're maintaining the structure of a marriage while living two different lives. On August 26, 2013, Bellucci and Cassel confirmed their separation. After 18 years together. 14 years married. And Bellucci later made something very clear. She said she was the one who made the decision. But she didn't turn that into an attack on Cassel. That surprised me. Because she also acknowledged something many people have trouble accepting after a breakup. Leaving someone doesn't necessarily mean you stopped loving them. Sometimes love changes. Sometimes a relationship reaches a point where continuing it hurts more than ending it. And that's essentially how Bellucci described what happened. She didn't present herself as a victim. She didn't publicly destroy the father of her children. She didn't turn 18 years of memories into a list of accusations. She accepted that both people had responsibility for what happened. And maybe that was her version of closure. But life after the marriage took both of them in very different directions. Cassel eventually married French model Tina Kunicky in 2018, and they had a daughter. That marriage ended in 2023. Bellucci, meanwhile, kept building her career. And this is where her story takes a turn I really like. 3 years after the divorce, she received France's Legion of Honor for her contribution to cinema. Then came one of the most remarkable roles of her career. James Bond. At 50. Inspector. For an actress who had spent decades being photographed primarily for her beauty, suddenly she was standing in the middle of one of the world's biggest action franchises as a mature leading woman. And Bellucci understood what that meant. She saw it as a sign that women didn't suddenly become invisible when they reached a certain age. That matters because her career could easily have gone another way. She could have been remembered primarily as the beautiful woman from European films. Instead, she kept changing. Television. Comedy. International cinema. And decades after she first became famous, Tim Burton cast her in Beetlejuice. By then, Monica Bellucci wasn't trying to recreate the woman she had been in her 20s. She had become something else. More comfortable. More selective. And, I suspect, much less interested in explaining herself. That's probably the biggest lesson I took from her marriage to Cassel.